Well, from TikTok and tariffs to elections, it has been another busy week in politics.
Joining us now to talk about the political headlines of the week, North Central College political science professor Bill Muck. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Probably the biggest thing is the tariffs that we're talking about because it's had such a domino effect on so many things. We're talking about, the stock market crashing, things like that. What does this mean for the everyday person?
Well, I think the implications start with the person down the street, and they have global implications, right? So as we think about how is it going to impact us in our day-to-day lives, well, many of us have lost money in the market the last couple of days, but I think with the longer term cost is the goods are going to become more expensive, right? So as these tariffs go into effect, and they haven't actually gone into effect just yet, we're going to start to see prices of goods, whether it's our coffee, our avocados, or a washing machine, or cars. That's where it's really going to hit home. Is the day-to-day goods, and the prices are going to hit us, and they're going to hit individuals in the middle class and working class much harder. They're going to hit individuals at the upper end. So I think that's where we're going to see the real impact. Is in discretionary income.
The president keeps saying that we're going to get richer. Everyone's going to get richer. Just hold on. I think he texted on Truth Social tonight, tariffs are here to stay. But the Fed chair is saying tariffs raise risks of faster inflation and slower growth.
Yeah, and I think nearly all economists would agree with the idea that this is not going to work. They're going to agree with Powell here to say that we have a long history of knowing what tariffs do to our economy, right? They make prices go up, trade goes down, people are going to lose jobs. So I mean, the economists are pretty clear on this. Whether they're left of center, right of center, all economists are worried about when you put tariffs or taxes on goods and services. And so this is a big deal, right? And we saw some of this in Trump 1.0, but what we're seeing here is fundamentally different. I think what Trump is trying to do is really upend the economic and political system that we've really seen since the end of World War II, where the United States has led this global exchange of goods and services. And we're really on this historic hinge point where things are going to become dramatically different.
Bill, I mean, it is early on here, but there's been so much loss already. Do you foresee a political breaking point? At what point do Trump allies sort of turn on him? Do you think that'll happen, and what will happen by that point?
This is the really interesting question, because even today, you saw a couple Republican senators come out and say, hey, we're a little worried about these tariffs. And Congress has the ability to take that power back. So, the Constitution, Section 1, Article 1, Section 8 says that Congress has the power to tax and tariff. So if Congress wanted to pull this back, they absolutely would have the ability to do so. Now, the question is, do they have the political will? And I don't know. I mean, it's been a couple bad days in the market, but all of these senators have to worry about being reelected. All these members of the House have to be worried about being reelected. And this potentially could be one of those wave elections in the midterms if they don't get this right. So I think right now, Trump's feeling pretty safe, but the political implications are going to creep in for these Republicans, members of Congress, very, very quickly.
Yeah, and they were supposed to be permanent, but do you think, like they were with Mexico and Canada, it's a negotiating point?
I think everything with Trump is negotiating, right? And even today, he was on social media talking about Vietnam, saying that, Vietnam had reached out and he's willing to make a deal. And that's part of the problem here, the uncertainty. Are these permanent? Are they temporary? Are they a negotiating tactic? One thing that the world likes about the American economy is that we're stable, right? You can trust the American economy. They don't like chaos. And so this uncertainty is the real concern. And if Donald Trump is really thinking about wanting to bring manufacturing back, then you've got to keep these tariffs in for the long term, despite all of the economic hardship it would bring. But if he's willing to negotiate, that changes everything. And that's the hard part. We don't know where the president is because he and his team haven't been consistent on this.
Let's talk about the Department of Education's DEI letter. The president wants schools K through 12 to sign it to say that they're going to go against DEI. Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago saying he'll sue. Even Barack Obama weighing in on it.
Yeah, and this is a big deal, and it gets to these core issues of free speech, right? Do states and local communities get to decide how to educate their kids? And what we're seeing is really a flip where the federal government is trying to come down and say, this is how kids should learn, this is appropriate material, this is inappropriate material, and we don't want any DI in that. It also raises these states' right issues. For years, conservatives have argued that states have rights, and we don't want the federal government infringing upon our ability to do this, and this is a very, very different dynamic. Now, I think the law is on the side of Johnson and Illinois here to say that it's not the right of the federal government to come in and impose these beliefs. But what we've seen out of the Trump administration is even in those instances where they're going to lose a case, they can cause a lot of damage. They can undermine funding. They can slow things down. We saw this with USAID and the educational department. So even if they're ultimately going to lose this case, working its way to the Supreme Court, in the process, the Trump administration can cause a lot of damage and bring a lot of pain onto these local school systems. So that's my biggest concern.
We had some important elections this week. I want to get your takeaways from the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, the election in Florida, and here at home locally in Aurora, where Mayor Richard Irvin was voted out of office.
Yeah, it has been a tough go for Democrats since the presidential election, right? A lot of soul searching, not sure what to do. Where's the party going to go? There isn't any real leadership in the party right now. But this week was a good week for the Democrats. And as all of those elections that you mentioned, what we saw was either Democrats winning or liberal justices winning, or the gap between conservatives and liberals were shrunk, right? So this is a week where I think the Republicans are increasingly worried about what's going on. In Wisconsin, that Supreme Court case was really interesting because not only did the liberal judge win by 10 points, and I'm from Wisconsin, everything is close in Wisconsin. This was a 10-point victory, and in all of the counties across the state, they trended liberal, in a liberal direction. And I think if you're the Republicans, you have to be worried about this because this is supposed to be the honeymoon stage for the Republicans and the Trump administration, and I think this is going to have them rattled a little bit, seeing these early developments.
What does that signal to you for 2026?
Well, I think Democrats are feeling good, right? And again, they haven't been feeling good, but especially the margins. That's what, you're really looking for. The two Republicans still won in Florida, as you would expect them to be, but these were seats where Trump won big, 30, 35, dramatic margins, and those were cut, right? So Democrats have to see that this is, a lot of the policies of the Trump administration are not particularly popular right now. And so if they're smart, I think Democrats will start to seize on some of those issues and play that into the midterm elections.
Elon Musk spent a lot of money in Wisconsin for sure this past election. Speaking of Elon Musk, let's talk about the fact that he's going to step away from Doge. He's going to go back to his businesses a little bit earlier than thought. He had 130 days that he could have stayed there with the president, but he's backing aside. What does this tell you, if anything?
Well, that Elon's maybe not as popular as we think, right? And in some ways, I'm sort of surprised it lasted this long, right? Elon's a big personality. Donald Trump is a big personality. Individuals in the cabinet all have big egos as well. And so in some ways, this was inevitable that it was going to blow up. I think what we've seen is members of Trump's cabinet have grown increasingly tired of Elon's role in the administration. I mean, Marco Rubio has been pushing back. But I think Wisconsin also is a big sign, right? That Elon really undermined Republican hopes there. And I think the reality is they would prefer him to be behind the scenes, not playing a prominent role. They still like his money. So I think Trump is going to still keep him around. But I think we won't see him front facing as much as we have over the last couple months.
And with all the tariff talk, there is also a budget bill that is moving through the Senate. How will you expect that to reflect Donald Trump's priorities as president?
Yeah, we're going to see there's going to be a lot of votes tonight, and it's going to be really interesting. I think the Republicans will get this through. And this is sort of the story that nobody's paying attention to because of all the issues on tariffs and all the other stuff that's playing out. But this is a big deal, right? So this is going to extend the tax cuts from the first Trump administration. There's also issues about Medicaid, and there's potential cuts there. So this is a lot of the bread and butter of Republican issues. This is the stuff that they really want to be talking about. But when the economy is going in such a dangerous direction, they can't be having those conversations. So I'm assuming that this is going to be very, very traditional. We've already seen a version of this. The Democrats will cause lots of other votes tonight to put Republicans on the spot. But I think Republicans have all the votes. They're ready to go. And I think this will move actually pretty quickly.
The vote-a-rama, as some of them call it. Senator Cory Booker had a speech this week, 26 hours or so long. Do you think that had an impact on anything?
I think so. Now, it's not going to have an impact on policy, but I mean, to go back to this point of the Democratic voters and the Democratic base has really been struggling, right? They've been looking for somebody that is going to fight for Democrats, and we haven't really seen that out of a lot of the mainstream Democratic candidates or elected officials. And so Cory Booker really kind of captured the spirit of a lot of the Democratic masses right now. He was pushing back. He was confronting Trump on these big issues. I mean, it's just extraordinary that you could be up there for 25 hours, just a physical act. was really, really interesting to watch. And so I think, the sort of the symbolism, oftentimes people are looking for somebody who's going to fight for them, right? And that was the big appeal of Donald Trump. He fought for his voters. And I think Cory Booker embolized some of that the last couple of days. And I think the other interesting thing to this story is that he broke Strom Thurmond's, he had the previously longest segment, a segregationist. And when he was doing that, he was arguing against civil rights legislation. So Cory Booker doing a good thing, pushing back, having real conversations, and pushing Strom Thurmond out of history. For me, is a pretty good thing.
All right. Professor Bill Muck from North Central College, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.